Mr. Sandman, bring me a dream. Make him the cutest that I've ever seen. Give him two lips like roses and clover, and tell him that his lonesome nights are over. Sandman, I'm so alone, don't have nobody to call my own. Please turn on your magic beam. Mr. Sandman, bring me a dream.
Good evening and welcome to Nox Mente. Tonight's guest is Billy Brujo. Billy is a world-class professional magician, sorcerer, and witch. In addition, he hosts the Black Magic cooking show on YouTube. The show is a unique blend of performance art, esoteric knowledge, practical magic techniques, and humor. Drawing on his knowledge of herbalism and hermeticism, he discusses and creates enchanted objects to assist the masses during their magical travails. If his show does not provide the answer one seeks, he offers personalized services on his own website at billybrujo.com. Billy, welcome to Nox Mente.
I'm happy to be here.
Hello, Billy. Nice to have you on our show.
Yeah, I am. I'm always glad to talk to some people about, well, pretty much anything. Apart from my specialty being the occult, but I'm one of those people who has an opinion on everything. So.
Yes, and as I told you privately, you were my first pick for All Souls Day. So this is lined up just right.
Well, I'm glad that you picked me because, like I was saying to you in the pre-interview, this is sort of my time of year. Everything October 24th is the anniversary of my first episode. And, going through Halloween, of course, we've got Devil's Night, made popular by The Crow.
Yes.
And then there's Halloween. And then there's All Souls. And then there's, Day of the Dead, depending on where your calendar says it is, any time in between the 1st and the 6th. So the 24th to the 6th is kind of my 2 weeks of 3 weeks or so of being or something.
Yes, you're seated exalted.
Yeah, this is the time to be. Oh, it was amazing. People dressed up as me this Halloween, and I got to see it all on Facebook when I got back from my night out, and the adoration. I'm knocked over. Honestly, I love all my fans, all my friends, all my followers.
I was trying to remember what my first impressions of her when I saw your makeup, and it was like a cross between The Crow and Kiss.
Yes.
With the sprinkle of Alice Cooper in there.
Yes.
I think the original inspiration is probably The Crow, but it's also like Beetlejuice and also Kiss, but like almost more so Gwar, like Slimenstra.
Gwar. Oh, yeah.
Is,
yes.
The white face. And it's like, all of my heroes have this white face. So, like, I gotta be, it's like a sign of being beyond human or something. And there's basically the Japanese equivalent of, like, the voodoo doll ritual.
Yes.
You are supposed to paint your face white so that you become like a ghost, because only ghosts can do magic.
Yes. And
so, like,
try not to be a hungry ghost.
Yeah.
Well, it's what really sets you apart, in my opinion. It puts you into a whole different realm, especially in the magical world and in hoodoo. You're entertaining to listen to. Your knowledge is deep. And you make everything fun. It's a good combo. So,
well, just
with
like my teacher, Crowley would say, it's like, where's the laughter? Like,
yes.
All of this religious stuff is so solemn. But like just last night, I was dancing with the Hare Krishnas, and even though I've got like ox bone beads on my neck, they didn't tell me to go away. they let me dance with them. And like, that's, you know, we were all having the Holy Spirit.
Well, that's the thing when you're in that whole your ritual wear essentially, which is what your getup is kind of. It sets you into a different space. You know, it actually puts a kind of a different, an altered dimension or that in betweenness, and people respond to it like that. It's like it's okay to look because you're clearly presenting something instead of just being in normal garb.
Right.
Where people where they might sense that you're different or something's different about you, but then it's less, you know, I don't know, that you invite it, and inviting it is where some power is.
Show that where I just taught you like regular arts and crafts,
Yeah,
like I could be a normal guy, but
right.
if I'm talking about something supernatural, I need to be a supernatural guy.
Absolutely, and you serve it up. So let's get into the show. So I want to tell us about the world you grew up in. Just in short, this is just to get an idea of kind of your inner ticking, the landscape you grew up in, the physical landscape, like city, countryside, things that inspired you or, you know, push you further, and all that.
Well, I grew up in the South Bay beach cities of Los Angeles. That's like Hermosa, Redondo, Manhattan, a little bit of Palos Verdes, a little bit of El Segundo, a little bit of Torrance, you know. So like I grew up as like a beach bum kid, and I was also raised like skeptic atheist by my parents and grandparents. But my grandpa was a great arguer, and like I caught on early on because I sort of like the first thing I ever read was a book of Greek myths, even though all of the and this was used by the people who were teaching me God wasn't real to be my first things that I read. So like for some reason, like I caught on early on to the whole thing about how science just throws out nothing spooky exists, you know, and they won't even look at it. But that's not being scientific.
Right.
You've got to keep an open mind to be scientific. So I would have these arguments with them, you know, that the fact that you can't prove it's real is just as much laziness, you know. It demands study, and you know, after a long time of like looking for magic and not finding it really, I mean, I saw a few books there, but the usual beginner thing, it's like, what are these ingredients that I've never heard of? I need to have all these crystals. It seems impossible. But then like later I found the works of Aleister Crowley, and crystals and herbs and stuff aside, he seemed to make it more I don't know, attainable, reasonable, or something. It's like it's really about your mind, and your mind, like any muscle, can be worked out. And so if you do these exercises, if you go through these rituals, you know, things happen. And sure enough, I've seen some weird stuff, and I've done some weird stuff, and or it appears that what I did resulted in weird stuff happening. Trying to remain as skeptical as possible. That's another thing. I sort of I feel that my outlook is unique and needed in the spiritual community, because even though I promote learning it and doing it, I do retain my skeptic upbringing. You know, like I was talking to someone recently who makes these statements about, you know, spirits are real, and I'm like, you can't say that. You've got to say they could be real, or everyone will laugh at you. So, and not take you seriously. So I try to keep, you know, I try to elevate the people who are too down to earth, and I try to bring the people who are too far up in the clouds a little bit back down to earth. So, you know, I don't know.
Had you had many paranormal experiences before you started experimenting with magic?
one time when I was very young, and I believe it was Christmas morning as well, because I went to my
Perfect.
parents and I said, like, I think I just saw Santa Claus. I saw this hand floating, and it was your typical ghost texture, I want to say. It was like, it was white, but it was clear. It was kind of like a cloud, and it was just a hand, and it kind of floated at like adult shoulder level. It came out of my closet and went out of the door to my room, into the greater house. And when I ran around the corner to see where it had gone, it was, of course, it was gone. But like, that was pretty weird for ghosts not being real. Could it
That's
have been
pretty
a
awesome.
dust cloud or something? I don't know. Was it my I mean, I do wear glasses now, but I didn't know, of course. Until you get them, you never know that you really need them.
Did
So
you? Right. That's I don't want to talk about definitely the glasses. Oh Lord. Did you get any Christian upbringing before this?
no, not at all. I was raised entirely to believe that nothing is real. And this, like when the kids in grade school learned that I didn't go to church, they all tagged me as devil worshiper.
Oh wow.
Even though I was not anything.
Yeah.
And I did have some friends who went to church, who were like the kids of some people my parents used to party with. So, the kids all just play. And they would go to church. So sometimes staying over at their house on the weekend, like I would go to church with them the next morning. But, I didn't really understand. Like, it didn't seem bad. It's just like I didn't know the songs and I didn't know what to do, and stand up, kneel, sit down, go around and hug everybody else in the room. I don't know. It's just like I was willing to participate out of respect to my hosts, but it didn't really, it wasn't for me or something. But now later in life, like I see the need for this catharsis, depending on who you are and what is therapeutic to you.
Right. Absolutely.
But
and I know a lot of witches who go to church every week. Like,
yes, I do also. Well, and especially when you start moving into the hoodoo community, church is part of it.
Oh yeah, I always think it's kind of funny a lot of the witches are rebelling from their Christian upbringing. But then I go and I read all these like old medieval grimoires and stuff, and it's like, by the power of Christ. And I'm like, how do you even get by in magic denying Christ? Like,
yeah.
It seems like there's so much Christ stuff.
Well, he's another crown prince.
Yeah,
in the end,
like Americana.
Yeah.
If enough energy is given into a being like that, it's going to be able to help you once in a while.
Yeah.
And that's the hand of the magician in the end. What sign are you, Billy?
I am a Scorpio, Aquarius rising with a Virgo moon.
Oh, all right. Bringing that to the table. I was
just told that I was just talking to some people. I'm in a little bit of a like book club, and we talk about occulty stuff, and we all have different specialties. And our star astrologer in the group was teaching us some, more nuanced stuff about how to read someone's birth chart. And so I'm just going to say, hey, ladies, I have a Cancer. I have Cancer cusping in my 5th house.
Oh my, he's
which
right.
Which apparently means I'm an attentive lover.
Yes, and also loyal.
Yeah, I like it.
That's a good thing. So also we have this since this show's basically about gates of perception, altered realities, all this other stuff that moves into the esoteric dream world. Have you done psychedelics?
Okay, this is like really interesting because I have done LSD twice, maybe only once. And I didn't really see anything, but I had the most weird perception of time because of who I was doing it with. And like, we would talk about stuff that hadn't happened yet, but then later, the questions that were it was like, I was with my girlfriend at the time, and she asked me like, how many times have we gone to bed? And we hadn't. But she asked that question like 9 times, and then later on we kept trying to go to bed and failing, until such a time as the question demanded asking.
Oh,
So
interesting.
like, it was this weird, like, time is happening at the same time. I wrote a thing about it, and it still actually makes sense. But yeah, it's like, not that there is no time, but that it's all happening at the same time.
Right.
I did mushrooms a few times, and I don't know if I got ripped off anything, although the one time was a camping trip and the other people claimed to have a good time. I'm getting a unstable internet connection.
You sound good. You bounced a bit. Yeah, it's over.
Okay, and then the one time I was dating this older woman while I was going to college, and in her hotel room, she was on Oxycontin for her terrible, crippling sciatica. And we took some together just to recreational, and I did hallucinate on that, but I have never hallucinated on typical hallucinogens. So,
what was your hallucinogenic experience on Oxy like?
Okay, so we were doing it, and it was it feels cool. I mean, I understand why people get addicted to heroin. It's pretty cool. But then later we were having sex, and it was weird. It was like I blacked out, but it was like having my eyes closed, seeing the blackness. It's not like I didn't have memory.
Yeah.
And then suddenly in the black, I started to see like an Arizona iced tea can, with like the crazy pattern on it.
Yes.
And like, as I looked at it harder and harder and harder, then I realized it was her face.
Oh, wow.
And reality came back. And then like, we were still having sex though, because like, hard drugs like that, it's like kind of hard to finish. So like, during this very long escapade, then we started like teleporting. Like suddenly we were having sex, and we were outside the fire department building, and then we were somewhere else, and the background kept changing to like different locations around Beverly Hills, where the hotel room we were in was at. And like, so that's not really so amazing. I didn't talk to God or anything. I had sex with an Arizona can in front of the fire department.
It is fascinating though that happened still. It where it takes you out of what is actually considered reality and into these other states. So let's move into the dreams.
No, I did just remember one more thing.
Okay.
It was a split-second hallucination. I drank like a half a bottle of absinthe, and for a moment in my mind's eye, my face turned green.
Ooh, the green fairy.
And then like, it was just like, as soon as I had that realization, my rational thing kicked in, and it was like, that's not possible, and it ended. I didn't see my own face, but you know what I mean? Like,
yes,
my self-perception or something. If I was in the Matrix, my face would have turned green for that moment,
But it's that whole suspension of disbelief. So your rational mind says it's not possible, and then all of the possibilities go down the drain. It's always sad, really. But that's where, and it's the great segue into dreaming, that's where things change when we're in dreaming states. So give us an idea of your general state of dreaming. Like
What do
dream
you say?
recall, how do you experience dreams generally?
Um,
Color, sound, all that.
Color, sound. I don't know that I've ever smelled anything. But I do get tactile stuff. Sometimes touching. I seem to remember touching something, and feeling feelings. And I can read, but not all the time. I seem to remember this one episode of the Batman cartoon in the '90s, saying that apparently there's something about dreams you can't really read in dreams because it's a different part of your brain or something. But no, I have read stuff in my dreams before. But then also I've looked at a book and read it, and then when I tried to reread the same passage in the book, it started getting all weird.
So you were able to read the book, and then when you went back to reread it, that's when it got weird?
Yeah, because I was having this dream about like I was in an etiquette class or something.
Uh-huh.
And there was this book open on the table, and I glanced at it and I read the passage that was relating to whatever. It was so long ago, I don't really remember. But I was like, I read it and I thought about it, and I was like, that's really good. I want to know what the exact wording was for when I wake up or whatever. And then, so then when I tried to reread it, it started getting all gloopy and changing and getting messed up.
Oh, that's interesting. It is. I mean, it's in my experience of talking to people about dreams, reading glyphs and stuff like that is very rare.
Yeah. Like I think it was really like, because I read it from a distance, I was able to read it. But then when I tried to get analytical, it started messing it up.
Right. And that's probably the key. All right. Let's move. So I didn't know where I wanted to go with this. I was thinking about.
I don't remember my dreams.
You don't remember your dreams?
But I do. Well, because I don't really like dreaming.
Why is this?
Okay, I don't really have. I mean, I've had some nightmares in my life, but I wouldn't really call them nightmares. But I have these like games. Like my brain will play a game with me. And lucid dreaming does not save you from this game. My brain will invent things to counter the fact that I've taken control.
Just like Inception, the subconscious turns against you.
It seems like it.
Do you have an example?
Okay, one time I was having this really bad fever, and I think that might have been part of why I was dreaming, because I kind of tried to stop dreaming. Like I made a conscious decision to stop dreaming at one time because of this sort of stuff. And so I didn't really dream much more after that. But I was in like one of those shooter games online. Like I think it was based on the setting. I'm gonna say it was like Unreal Tournament. Kind of like futuristic spaceshipy looking hallways.
I used to make maps for that game.
People running around shooting each other, but I don't have a gun. And I had this fever, and I had the whole half in, half out thing. It's like when I moved too much in my dream, I would move in real life, and that would upset the too hot, too cold, just comfort thing that I had going on in bed.
Yes.
So I couldn't run, but I had to walk around briskly and hide while all of these other people were shooting each other. So it was some kind of puzzle about how, I don't know, how fast I'm allowed to think or something. And I've had other stuff like that. I can't really remember any of it off the top of my head. That's kind of the most colorful one that I've ever had.
So
and
is
I've had a really good lucid dream where it was like the first time that I ever lucid dreamed. I was walking down a beach with a friend of mine, and this other friend of ours flew to us on a kite to tell us that we should go out to this ship that he just flew out from over the water. And seeing him fly in on the kite made me realize that it must be a dream. But then, like Inception, next thing I know, I'm on the ship. I don't really know how I got there. And I knew there was a scene missing. So I was really sure it was a dream now. And I was about to like throw a fireball through the hull of the ship because I was like, I want to leave. And the whole time that I was like charging up the fireball, my friend is standing next to me going, "What are you doing? That's not going to do anything." Trying to talk me out of it the whole time. So yeah, it's these weird puzzles, and I don't. It's not a nightmare, but I don't like it. It's not restful. I want to sleep when I sleep.
So you actually do come back from dreams feeling exhausted when you have them?
Sometimes, yeah, and they're usually not pleasant. I had this dream in Nicaragua where like another planet was crashing into Earth after I walked around this church and talked to the priest about like what the secret books they have is. Then I went outside and I like looked up in the sky and there was this planet filling the sky. Like clearly the world was going to end in the next like 30 seconds. And then I woke up and I was kind of like, but I don't know, I didn't feel fear in the dream or anything, but I woke up like all uncomfortable, like it was a bunch of work.
How long ago was that dream?
That was, oh gosh, when did I run away to Nicaragua? I had a lot of dreams in Nicaragua because even though almost every other drug is legal, marijuana is not.
So strange.
And, I think it was because of, that was what people were trying to grow to sell outside of that country or something.
Right.
So that was illegal, like really bad, but no, cocaine, we can like get you all you want. Well, I don't like cocaine. So like, no. But that was like, oh gosh, it wasn't 10 years ago, but it was a long time. 7 maybe years ago.
Okay.
The other thing about Nicaragua is you're not in such a frequency soup as you are in LA.
Also, another weird thing is the dreams that I did have, a lot of them would take place back here in the US. And I had that thing happen where you wake up and you go back to sleep and the dream continues.
Yes.
So every time there was this one night when it kept happening because the mosquito bites kept waking me up. And like 9 times I woke up and go to sleep and the dream continued. And each time I woke up and went back to sleep, I was more tired. So it's like, astral body or something. It's literally like I was running laps in between the US and Nicaragua.
Interesting.
In a split second, which is, I ain't the Flash. I can't run that fast. It's too fast. It's exhausting.
But you don't need to run there. You just kind of snap your fingers and go.
I guess, but the distance traveled was still wearing on me.
Well, the fact that you were having those successive dreams too is, I think Jerry mentioned that he is able to do that as well. That I always find that so hard. I go back in and I have still the imagery and I can active imaginate them, but I don't lose myself in it like you do in a dream. So I'm always fascinated by that.
I think a key way to do that is not to really be fully awake when you get up to piss or whatever, you're doing.
Yeah,
that you can go back. Yeah, if you're still, half asleep,
like your brain is still running the program in the background.
Yes, exactly.
Like you're in a semi-hypnagogic state, like you're, like, I don't know, walking around almost, asleep. Maybe that's just how I've always thought of it. Excuse me.
Do you have any reoccurring dreams throughout your life?
I was hoping this question would be next or on the agenda because, yes, I did once as a kid, I had this dream several times, and then I had it once later, maybe in high school or something. So many years apart that it was really weird to me to have the dream come back.
Tell us about it.
Okay, so you know that game Hot Lava, where you can't touch the floor, it's hot lava. Classic children's make-believe game where you have to walk on the couches and stuff, you know, to get around. Well, like in my neighborhood, it was the neighborhood I grew up in, like the 4-block square, you know, and all the streets and sidewalks were hot lava. So you had to walk on the planters, and like certain tiles, you know, that were set in people's lawns or something might actually be safe, floating tiles. But like the whole neighborhood was hot lava, and especially like at the end of that 4-block, the furthest point from my house, there was this street that we used to ride our bikes down all fast because it was like parabolic. It goes down and it came back up, and so that was actually this amazingly beautiful, like, magma waterfall shape, and you know, it wasn't, again, like, it wasn't a nightmare. It wasn't scary or anything. It was just like, these are the rules. You have to get around by walking on the planters and by walking on safe squares. Even though I don't even really remember having ever played that with the kids in my neighborhood, there weren't so many kids in my neighborhood either. And so, yeah, it wasn't even like a nightmare. In fact, when I did finally make it to the farthest block of the neighborhood, I thought it was beautiful. This orange and red glowing cascade that was on the hill street. And yeah, it was just really weird. Like 10 years later, when I was 16, 17 or something, and I had this dream, because why? I didn't live in that neighborhood anymore. I didn't, and I don't really remember if I was a kid in the dream or if I was myself at the time either. It was pretty much, usually I dream in third person perspective, but this one was pretty much first person perspective. So
was it more lucid?
No, I mean, yes, in that I could walk around wherever I wanted to. I had, you know, the dream wasn't on rails. Like, it wasn't evolving a narrative for me, but
Okay.
it was like a sandbox. You know, I was free to roam around wherever I wanted to.
Yeah.
But other than that, I really couldn't fly or do anything. I was still confined by normal physics, except that I wasn't being vaporized by this hot lava, you know.
Right.
Like in the game Hot Lava, it doesn't really put out any heat or something, but you still, if you touch it, you're out, you know.
Oh yeah, light as a feather.
So someone said that in the chat a little bit ago, by the way.
Oh really?
Yeah, ding, sync. We need a synchro bell here.
I know.
My question was, why do you think you have so many dreams in this virtual video game landscape?
I don't know. I just compare dreams to a video game, I guess, because they are similar in that they're virtual worlds. In fact, lately I keep thinking more about video games and like the non-player characters and like how
yes.
how they have lives. Like, even if it's just in the parameters of the program, you know. And sure, it's that dude's fate to like come around the corner and get shot by me. Maybe he likes it, maybe he doesn't. I don't know about that, but like watching some of the like, I was watching a YouTube with like all glitches in The Sims, when they get all like freaky looking.
Yes.
And I'm always like, God, that must hurt and be so uncomfortable for you, you poor computer blip. Like, I don't feel any compunction about shooting you in the face, but man, if you're glitching like that, I feel bad for you.
They're waking up.
Yeah. No, that's interesting then.
Well, especially in the movie Pi, didn't it say that, like, right before getting all fucked up, the computer has like a momentary consciousness? I don't know if that's true, but like, yeah, I think it looks painful to glitch out that bad.
Some would argue that that technology of a certain complexity with a certain amount of energy running through it can host a consciousness of some level. So there are people out
animism, of course, everything is alive in its own way.
Sure. And yeah, that's a whole interesting topic in and of itself.
Yeah, mark that for post-Horus too. Let's get into that.
What do rocks dream about?
Well, I was thinking more about exploring the connection. If that was to house or generate a consciousness, would that be allowed or able to connect to the collective consciousness of humanity?
Well, I would say like a video game itself is I was watching this other guy's YouTube about, he just talks about comic books. And he was talking about pocket dimensions, you know. Like Asgard is a pocket dimension.
Right, like Fringe had that.
Yes.
You know, it's a little world, but it's maybe not as big as like this universe inside. It's kind of got whatever it just needs to exist.
It's like Rick's battery.
Yeah. So like, you know, I think a video game is a pocket dimension, and then the you know, the characters, the sprites or whatever, those are like your populace. So, and of course we get a lot of great archetypes out of video games. You know, if we're going down a Jungian place, I mean, I saw a bunch of my favorite childhood characters last night. As a matter of fact, Tifa Lockhart looking very cleavageful on Halloween.
Sorry, I was reading chat.
Oh, no problem.
Oh, I thought you glitched out. I was like, is there a glitch?
I heard what you said.
Billy,
I was thinking about it. So.
Have you gotten any feedback that you sleepwalk or sleep talk?
I used to be with someone who would talk not every night, but almost every night. And I would write down what she said, because sometimes it was just so funny or interesting, you know, and you don't always remember your dreams. So maybe if I can tell you, oh, you said this, it'll jog something, because I wonder what you were dreaming about.
Oh, shit.
And the only time that she ever wrote down something for me, I said, well, that's a funny hat. And then she was like, what is? You know, prompting me. And then I said, it's a pyramid, a pair of lips.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know what I was dreaming about or anything. But I feel like it was that classic picture of Aleister Crowley with his foot, and it looks like he's wearing a pyramid hat.
Yeah, that's what flashed through my head.
Except that instead of the eye triangle in the middle, it's got a pair of lips. Like probably, I'm guessing, but I'm imagining it was like the Rolling Stones logo.
Yeah.
On his hat, and that's a pyramid pair of lips.
That's interesting.
A funny hat. That's
too bad you don't have that dream.
Yeah, I'd like to know. I think something else, because I also don't remember and I don't have the note, but I think that there was some reference to, like, I was watching TV when I saw it.
Okay. So, what do you think about deja vus? Do you experience them?
I have. I don't know what they mean. There's a lot of options for what they mean in all of the spooky books. We've been there before. past life stuff, blah blah blah. But
what do you think, Billy? When you experience them, what's your general experience? Like what have you come to?
I mean, I have to admit that the feeling of been there before, and that's weird for some reason, because I go to places I've been before all the time, and it's not weird, you know.
Right.
But like, I'll go to the kitchen later after this interview, and it won't be weird. I've been in this kitchen before, you know? Because sometimes it will even happen someplace you've been before, and so like I admit that there's a feeling of being here before, and I don't know why it feels like that, because I don't think that that's necessarily what it is either. I really don't know. I guess it marks maybe a chapter break in the book of life or something. Who knows?
How often do you experience deja vu?
Not so often.
So it's more anomalous for you.
Yeah. As far as feeling like something before, I just met some people last night at Halloween who came out to see me, who are people I know from the internet, and I have a lot of friends that it's felt this way. A couple people I met in high school who I'm no longer in contact with, but it's like I don't remember meeting them for the first time, because it feels like we've always known each other.
Yeah, I experienced that with some people as well.
Like, yeah, even though I met this person for the first time last night, it feels like just another time.
Yeah.
You know, but of course the internet, you know, like I do actually know you before
we get
out.
quite intimate on the internet with each other. So it's like we do know a lot about other people that we interact with.
So it's less weird over the internet, but
we
like
think
my friends who were like the goth girls in the drama class in high school, the internet wasn't like a thing yet, you know. So I mean, it was, but it wasn't what it is today. Facebook wasn't a thing yet, and YouTube didn't exist yet. In fact, I don't even know where we watched viral videos, like on Style Project or something. For those of you who are that old, GeoCities, what up? Angel Fire.
You know, some of those sites are still up and operating.
IRC.
It's crazy.
There's a Reddit page that's like Reddit like it's 1999 or something. They link you to all that stuff.
That's so great. Okay, so Billy, what do you think? So what's your opinion on what are dreams? What's the whole function of it? I know you are trying not to have dreams. I guarantee you are still, though.
Well,
what is that state?
I think it's kind of exactly what I said. Well, like based on all the science stuff that I've read, and based on not as much of the occult stuff I've read. I'm more on science's side on this. I mean, I do think that you can probably astrally project and go visit people. I appear in a lot of dreams that other people are having. And I do feel like it's me when they tell me about it. But I'm more on science's side here about it's your brain continuing to like process. To use another computer analogy, it's like, it's running a defragment or something. And I think that goes hand in hand with my experience of dreaming being all of these puzzles or whatever. So I think it is your brain trying to like rehash. You know what? Here, I'm gonna make a leap. That's a thought I just had right now. So, when you do conditioning, and it doesn't even have to be like Pavlov level, but like apparently anytime you connect two new thoughts together, a neuron bridge grows in between those two brain cells or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to say that, sure, you maybe shoot out like a thin spider web when you originally make the connection. And then when you go to sleep, it's like, the real work crew comes out and like builds the whole rest of the bridge.
So, all right, I'm going to jump from there and kind of, it might seem like a stretch, but so what is death? What's that state in your, what do you feel about it? What do you think it is?
I wish I had an answer. I'm gonna I'm gonna stumble through one. Of course, with my upbringing, I am very likely to believe that death is just turning off the lights,
And that's it.
And I bet there's a lot of stuff that happens in that last moment, because I've noticed, when you turn on a light and it burns out, it always seems to happen when you turn it on. That it flashes once and then it burns out. But that flash is much brighter than the light bulb usually is. And of course, it might not be. It might just be because it's dark.
No, but that does seem to be. That's a great analogy.
But it does. It's like if it's a yellow incandescent bulb, it's much whiter and it's much brighter. And so like heaven and hell and the white light and, these near-death experiences that we hear people report about, that's probably not, if I'm going to go this skeptic route, I bet that you do get a whole eternity in that last moment, and it could be heaven, it could be hell. That depends on your life and your regrets and your guilt, and also the tunnel of white light, that's totally comparable to the white flash of the dying bulb.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we're going to go like a religious route, I'm going to say, okay, so then like, brief semi-bridge between the skeptic and the spiritualist about ghosts. I don't know that ghosts are sentient or something. I'm going to say more like they're a residue, like the ghost who's jumping off the window every night, to his death. That's not the soul of that person. If there was a place for the soul to move on to, it did. But the traumatic experience, like the emotional slime or whatever, that gets stained on the place somehow.
Yes.
And so it's not conscious. It's just a film strip being played on repeat,
Yeah, I've often really felt that too.
It's not connected really to that person. So whenever, the light workers are all like, we're going to this haunted place and we're going to help them move on. I'm like, help who move on? It's an empty building. Yes, the windows creak every night and the floor makes footsteps, but that's not that guy. That guy is dead.
Yeah.
Yet these people claim success with these operations.
Because, but I don't, maybe they're not aware of what they're doing. They may be cleansing the emotional trauma from the place, and
right.
not necessarily
disconnecting the energetic attachment.
And then they pat themselves on the back saying that they've helped them move on, but for years and years and years, even to this day, we really don't know how hypnotism works, but we know a little bit more.
I'm sure the CIA knows how it works.
But for Mesmer thought he was doing something completely different.
Yes, Mesmer.
But he was.
Yeah. He was doing hypnotism, but he thought it was something else.
That was just because, but that you could even say that the same could be said of chaos magic versus Keys of Solomon type of magic.
Yeah, that's why I try to retain my open-mindedness. Because I don't really know if it's the ghosts or if it's me or if it's my imagination. But it does seem to cause change in accordance with will. So I'm willing to continue to experiment with that.
Well, okay, so all that said, what gives you so much conviction that this is anything tangible and real, this state of being? Couldn't this just be a lucid dream? I mean, in theory, you've had a lucid dream, so you know that they seem completely real, except for everyone agrees on certain rules here that you can't just pop up and fly, you know, those kinds of things. Yeah, continuity.
You know, it's true. It's you're not wrong. And every time that I read something that makes the argument really convincingly, you know, or says a bit of the argument that I've never heard before, it does kind of mess me up for a little while. I did walk out of Fight Club when it was in theaters with my best friend, with both of us arguing that the other one was the one who was real and that ourselves were the imagination, because we both had better proof for the other one being the real guy. And also I saw Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind in theaters with a girl I was dating at the time. And boy, did we walk out of that theater looking at each other sideways.
Yeah, yeah.
So, like, yeah, sometimes I don't know myself, but
almost every Charlie Kaufman movie evokes that effect, I think.
I guess it's the continuity or the, you know, because also the, I've read some arguments like that where, like, so you go to sleep and you wake up and even though you remember everything that guy remembered, you know, it's the if I made a clone of you and it thought it was you.
Yes.
But would you be seeing through its eyes? No.
Well, you don't even have to stretch it like that, Billy. Like, what about your own memories in this life you've had? How your version can be so different from someone else in the same scenario.
Well, I mean, like, I don't know. I think that's the thing that keeps me thinking it must be real is that continuity of consciousness. It's that I keep returning here.
Yeah.
Whereas when I dream or when I do, you know, spiritual quest stuff, vision questy stuff, it's like I always come back to here.
Yeah.
When I go to sleep, when I wake up, okay, yeah, that thing that maybe you wake up and you're a different person or something, that did mess me up one time, but no, I don't know. It just seems like because I always touch base here, this must be the real. But of course, you know, if this is an 80-year-old dream cycle, because that's how the being of a higher order that I really am works, I don't know, because I just haven't made it to the end of that cycle yet.
Well, I mean, I have no answer. I have no conviction in almost anything. I'm just an open explorer. So I listen to a lot of stuff and then I have my own biases, of course. But it does, when I do ponder like the nature of dreams and memory, it makes me not so certain about this timeline we're on. Yes, I'll wake up tomorrow and I'll be Nish and I'll go about my world. You know, at least I count on that, right? But who's to say that? I mean, I just don't know. That's even how this is kind of how this whole show got started.
Okay, and so then actually back on the death thing, which I did miss. My last perspective is the true spiritualist perspective. But I'm going to go back to my sort of chaos magic thing, and as silly as this sounds, I actually because it does. I think it sounds more silly than there being one afterlife. But it kind of, with chaos magic and with egregores, and like we were just saying earlier about Jesus, and you put enough energy into a being, and it seems to become a real thing. So, like, I actually sort of believe that, whatever you believe the afterlife is where you go. So I like the Egyptian ideal of getting on the boat with Horus, because I feel that that's more free. Like, heaven is a place and you go there to stay, and hell is a place and you go there to stay, and Valhalla and all of these places, the 9 hells of Tibetan, and all of that. Well, even though you reincarnate out of there eventually, you do go there for some time, but like, it seems like if you're on the boat with Ra, you get to tour. And if I was going to go to an afterlife, I'd like to get the hall pass to go tour, to go visit the different etheric countrysides and see what they have to offer. And maybe I'll set up a home in one of them one day, but I'd like to travel.
Yeah, I like that perspective.
So whenever anybody who I love, dies, I set up my black candles. I get my leopard robe on, which is the robe of the Ur-Hekau, and I read them the whole book. It takes me like 2 months to read all the spells for Book of the Dead, but I think that's the place to be, is on the boat. So
that's beautiful.
I'd like to get the people that I want to hang with on the boat.
And if it's true that we go where we believe we're going to go, then that's where you're going to go. So.
But a touch of the Book of Subgenius.
Yes.
If you believe in hell, you're going to hell.
Yes.
If you believe in heaven, you're going to heaven. If you believe in heaven and hell, you're going to hell. So, your beliefs, you gotta control them a little bit.
See, I believe that I'm going to die and wake up in the control room of this matrix and shut the fucker down.
Rock on, Jerry.
I'm a programmer from the future. That's what I'm going to do. So,
it does speak to the whole magic angle, which is definitely what you bring to this table. And the power of will.
Something about the Matrix is that line when they're plugging him in the first time, and this is gonna feel a little weird.
Yeah.
Like, have you ever worn headphones while plugging them in, and it gives you that noise? I gotta imagine. Sometimes I try to think about what that noise looks like, tastes like, because when they put that spike in the back of your head, you're getting a full sensory that noise. And it is not a pleasant noise.
Yeah, they didn't act like it was. But it's more than just noise. It's, like you said, it's full body sensory experience. Like a microsecond or whatever.
That happens when you plug in the headphones. But it's over as soon as you plug it in, and it's like, that was weird, yes, but it's over now.
Maybe
so
it's those ghosts trying to. Go ahead, sorry.
Let's ask questions from the chat. This has been about an hour, and then we like to get some questions from the chat before we go our after show. Yeah.
Oh, I talk a lot.
No, it's just been fast, and it's been.
Sorry.
We went through all my stuff, and there's yeah. I hope you got notes for our after show with them.
I have 3.
Cool. So anyone in the chat, I haven't been in the chat. Hello to anyone I missed earlier. But all caps, please. Questions for Billy.
I am an open book.
Read me.
But don't try to read too analytically, or it'll get all gobbledygook.
Not just pretty words.
Fall back, to earlier jokes.
Words have power. Hi, Rashka Moose. I'm now looking at the question at that. Yay. The moose is in the house. Jerry, are you looking?
I am. I was typing something. Okay, so which Crowley books turn you on?
Dead air is bad for radio.
I'll edit it out if this ever makes it onto radio.
Of course, we're not on FM, so that doesn't matter.
Exactly. So the first question is, two questions. Which Crowley books turn you on?
The first thing I read was Book of Lies, and honestly, it's still it has new meaning every time I read it. You know, no matter whatever new stuff I've figured out, new ways that I've decrypted his weird way of coding stuff. It always has new stuff, and I actually feel like Book of Lies is really underrated as far as, like, there's this whole thing where you use the Psalms as certain types of spells from the Bible. And I feel like Book of Lies is the same thing. I think that each chapter, you know, each poem in that is for a purpose. And I did write a whole rundown of which ones I think are what, you know, because some of them are obvious, like the Cry of the Hawk is clearly a Eucharistic Mass, and the Star Ruby and the Star Sapphire are in there. And some of them are clearly whole rituals, but other ones, like the gun barrel, mighty and erect is this will of mine, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's very inspiring. Like, it gets your passion fired up. So, yeah.
Contrast that to like a Marine's from a Full Metal Jacket with that, you know, this is my rifle.
Yeah.
That kind of mantra, it does inspire power, and I think that's one bleed over area between, say, civilians or muggles versus magicians.
And of course, since we were talking about deja vu earlier, the Book of Law, I am willing to give that to Crowley, that, you know, he may be a prophet. I do believe that that book was communicated to him, because whether I like him, you know, I like him at sometimes and I don't like him at other times, but that book does resonate in a way sort of beyond the rest of his works.
Yeah.
And I had the feeling of having read it before when I first read it. So of course I went right out. I was reading it in a class in college, and I walked out of the room to go tear it in pieces because it says to destroy it upon first reading. And it hit me so hard that I felt it was necessary to follow the instructions out. Otherwise, what you want to do if you're going to get into Aleister Crowley is you want to read Israel Regardie's Golden Dawn manual. There is a new version of it out that is spectacular. I haven't read the whole thing myself, but it's packed full of charts and things, and the old ass copy that I have was great at the time, and the new one just it's hardbound. It's a fantastic looking book on your shelf. So you want to read that first to get the groundwork in Crowley's cipher, like his coded speech. Then you want to read book 4, the big $80 one, same hardbound, all that, because that kind of gives you a guidepost to what other stuff of his you should read. And after that, of course, the Book of Law is contained in that book 4, so you don't have to get a Book of Law for yourself. But then after that, I'd get the Book of Lies, and maybe Magic Without Tears. some of his yoga stuff I like, but I'm talking to a yogi right now who's doing some deep research in like helping these guys to translate some stuff that was never translated before. And it's apparent that Crowley's understanding of Eastern practices is very minimal. What he told me was they basically, in those days, there was certain stuff that you only taught to foreigners and the mentally ill because you couldn't mess it up. And that's mostly what the stuff Crowley talks about, the breathing exercises and things. And you can get to enlightenment through that path, but there is just so much more that the system of yoga and other Eastern practices has to offer. So don't learn your yoga from Crowley, but read it anyway. Because he does have, he was not the first chaos magician, really, but chaos magic wasn't what it was called yet. And he does have his own little opinions on stuff, and they're not bad. So, yeah, I'd go, my favorites are Lies and Law, but if you want to start with him, you gotta spend the $80 and get book 4.
So 32 bucks.
Did you post it in the chat?
I dropped a link in chat, yeah.
To the Israel book?
$31.99 hardcover. Published
To the Israel book?
No,
book 4?
Book of Lies.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Oh, Book of Lies.
Yeah, I thought, but isn't Israel the book 4 what Billy was saying people should?
Here it is, $72.41.
Yeah, there you go. That $80 one. Exactly. Because plus your shipping and everything, you're going to be shelling out $80 for that. Unless you happen to find it at Barnes & Noble.
Or a Prime member.
Yeah.
Which I am. Okay, let's see. We got more questions. We got lots of questions.
All right.
All right, Felix, a.k.a. Cliff Wall, asks, tell us about your first kiss.
My first kiss was on a beach with the girl who was allegedly dating a friend of mine, but they had like broke up the day before. But she was kind of promiscuous, so she had sex with him later, which he thought meant they were back together, but they weren't, so I don't know. Anyway, yeah, my first kiss was on a beach at like midnight, and I was just hanging out with someone who I thought was my friend, but it was kind of a romantic setting, and she said, "Do you want to kiss me?" in that way that's so straight out of a movie, and yeah, it was quite cinematic.
Oh, nice!
Excellent.
But it also wasn't like wow, either. It was kind of like, okay, so this is what that's like. It wasn't fireworks or anything like they make it out to be in them.
Well, you're a guy too,
I guess. My first blowjob was pretty fireworks. I mean,
we'll save that for the after chat.
That's our after chat.
Oh, oops, sorry.
We're totally getting into that. And when we do say goodbye, stay on the line, Billy, for after chat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so what is your favorite piece of clothing to wear and why?
I right now I'm wearing the same shirt I was wearing last night. I have a black silk shirt. When I first got it, I had never worn silk before. It felt like water on my skin. And I didn't like it. Was too luxurious for me.
Ooh, I love some silk chiffon, baby.
I've worn it in, now, and it's been washed a few times, and it's comfortable. If it's hot, it's warm. If it's cold,
yes, silk is great.
Silk is an amazing thing. Yeah,
silk and wool, both beautiful.
Otherwise, I like to wear a pair of boots. I don't even have another pair of shoes these days because I learned working in the last warehouse I worked in what an important tool boots are. Because there
Yes.
were giant crates that were like shifted, and I couldn't have closed them unless I gave them a sharp, swift kick that I couldn't have done wearing any other kind of shoes. So like, I
Especially
like my
flip-flops.
boots.
And you're ready if shit gets crazy.
Right.
And I like
ass
to,
kickers on.
I'm very thin, so I'm cold all the time. So I like having that leather up around my ankle. It keeps heat from leaking out of my body.
That's the funniest question, though.
Right.
It's great. We're getting your wardrobe questions.
He said, "Ask me anything."
I love my leopard robe. It's I don't wear it all the time. In fact, I hardly wear it on the show anymore. But I put a lot of effort into it. It's one of the greatest art pieces that I've made.
Oh, I didn't realize you made that. I do love it too.
It's canvas on the outside, fuzzy leopard on the inside. I did all the embroidery by hand.
Oh, it
I
is
sewed the whole
gorgeous.
thing by hand, and it is. It doesn't really smell like it now because it's been a long time. But it smells like a campfire because I'll take it camping. Because in the middle of the
Yes.
night when it gets to be freezing,
Yes.
it's like wearing a sleeping bag, and it is just so comfortable and nice.
Yeah, it's great. I had no idea you made that. That's awesome.
Yeah, long before my show too. It was just something because of symbolic whatever. I felt that I needed to have a right proper magician's robe, and reading all of the symbolism stuff from Crawley and Golden Dawn and all that. It's the Ipsismus robe, because if you become Ipsismus, you're supposed to put on the probationer's robe.
Uh-huh.
So it looks like the probationer's robe because it's white with the red pentagram on the front and the red and blue hexagram on the back. But I have the leopard inside to denote how it's the high rank because, like I said earlier about Ur-Hekau priest, it's he wore a leopard and white robe, and then if you look at the stele of revealing, that guy in front of Horus is wearing a white and leopard robe. So yeah, it's kind of like subtle Thelema jokes robe. And then yeah, combining some other Crawley stuff, it's like it's big enough for two. And it's because the canvas on the outside but the fuzzy leopard on the inside, you could throw it out in the woods and have a sky-clad forming of the holy hexagram with the high priestess.
Yes.
Because it is, yeah, it's a walk-in bed. Like,
the great rite commence.
Right. Le Haut Rituel.
All right, we have more questions to push through.
Please.
Okay.
Have you had any experiences with concentrated power from chakra points?
I guess so. Not really. Like my heart chakra is apparently always on overload. I didn't know symbolically at the time, but in high school, and I wasn't even into magic so much yet, I always had this green flame coming out of my chest and left shoulder and the left eye, which formed up on my face into the form of the cross. That's a part of where my face paint comes from. Like years later, I would learn that green was the heart chakra color. And so then I kind of like put two and two together. And then later on, I got an aura photograph, and it was all green and yellow, like way overpowering everything else. And I was like, oh, I see. I get it now.
Yeah.
This thing in my mind's eye was actually not totally inaccurate.
Very good, very good. Okay. All right, Felix, that's enough questions from you. Has a random person ever approached you on the street and had an important message for you?
I actually like that question a lot.
Yes, it happens often because the whole Greek gods thing, walking around looking like homeless people.
Yes.
A couple of times as a kid, like me and my mom were somewhere, and a homeless person started talking to us, and whatever they were saying, and my mom, even though she's skeptic atheist, would say like, "That was Gabriel just now," like, and I'm like, well, I didn't know enough at the time to even be like, how do you even know who the fuck Gabriel is? But just recently, I was having this whole revelation about birds, and then I was driving to another place, and as I was about to turn this corner, this homeless guy walking through the street turns at me, looks at me, and then starts waving his arms, and going "caw caw" like for no reason.
Did you have your makeup on?
No.
Okay.
That's an interesting synchronicity with the makeup, though, even though you didn't have it on.
So yeah, like I was thinking about crows and the future of the evolution of like some stuff like all these animals are eating our human garbage right now.
Yes.
And there's a lot of American food waste is apparently the worst in the world, highest rate or whatever. And so like there's all these crows which are already smart, and raccoons which have opposable thumbs, who are eating all these half-eaten cheeseburgers. And I heard that part of what caused our brains to start evolving was that we started eating meat unlike the other monkeys. So I'm like, it's all in God's plan. The crows and the raccoons eating all this meat that they wouldn't have had access to before, because they need to get smarter to replace us one day or something.
Jerry, put that in your notes. I want to get down that rabbit hole a bit.
And it's not that
it wasn't they're eating meat; it was they're eating cooked meat.
Oh, okay.
That loosened up
even more so.
Yeah, exactly.
But then imagine the stuff that they're eating from humans. I mean, really. Oh.
Especially if there's human parts in it. Okay, we got more questions. Raksha asks, have you ever encountered a being, person, or otherwise that could produce magical effects, quote unquote, that you have personally seen or experienced?
My ex-girlfriend, we were together for 10 years. She has a very simple herbal spell that causes rain, and I won't reveal it because it is it's her copyright.
Okay.
But I live at the beach. It's summer here, almost all year round. But during the summer, it can get hot, 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 and she hates the heat. And every time it would get to a certain level, she would burn this herb combination, and boom, rain the next day in the middle of summer with no, like, baffling to the weathermen. Just in this town that we live in, and for like 4 years, we did not have a summer here, and it just rained all summer because she wanted it to. And I myself, I used to say to her that, like, hey, it's cool, we form a system, because from having to walk home a lot in high school and stuff, I can make it stop raining. So we start the rain and we stop the rain, and it's kind of a complete system. And I've heard some stories from a person who I like to call my sister, but she's not really. She scares me a lot. And she has apparently done some things that she has never been caught for because of her spooky Native American magic. And So, have I ever seen lightning leap from someone's fingertips? Only when they're shocking me with static electricity. Anything that I can really prove beyond a shadow of a doubt? No. But this rain thing, it's no coincidence. It just happened too regularly. Yet also she failed to do it enough times, that it's also, for some reason, 100% would be something I would be skeptical of, but 97% makes it more legitimate. Because if it's 100%, then it's a trick,
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely.
From.
All right. We got one more from Felix here for you.
Felix is on fire.
He's got two more actually. In today's ever-present tech world, do you ever feel paranoid, like you're being surveilled?
Dude.
Since I was a kid, my parents and I have always laughed that our house is bugged, because we'll talk about something and then it would appear later on a TV show that we watched or something.
We
Married
talk
with
about
children.
stuff like
How
that.
did they know all of that stuff?
Welcome to my life.
Actually, like, as that progressed, I mean, in high school, that's when the internet started being a thing, and more security cameras started going up and everything. My grandpa had a saying that the problem with Big Brother is you'd have to hire 2/3 of the population to watch the other third, because you've got to give, the watchers some time off. And of course, now we have computers scanning stuff and searching for keywords and things like that. And so, like, it could be done. And I've worked at places that have security cameras that I watched myself, but it's like, no one really looks at the security footage until after something goes missing.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, of course, we're all being watched and recorded all the time nowadays, but is anybody playing the tapes back? That I don't know. And also, sort of, my show and internet presence was an attempt to opt in. Like, there was another YouTube who, I don't remember his name, but his shtick is that he's like the Truman Show. He records every moment of his life.
Oh, God.
And he said something about this. It's like, hey, in the world, we're moving down this path, and there's no going back. And so, you can either opt in, or, you can try to pretend like you're going to still hide, but, like, you're just fooling yourself. So I kind of decided, again, sort of like a Howard Stern reference or something, like, from his movie, though. It was like, at some point I decided just to be completely honest with the audience.
It was before you got to NBC.
And that was even before I started my show. Like, that I was like, I'm just going to say whatever I think. Of course, I was kind of raised to do that. But when I started doing a YouTube, it was even so much more. I'm opting into the Big Brother. And so, but by it being a willful choice, I had some power. Like, for example, I could create myself as this character, instead of being myself.
Yeah. I like the way you're doing it, Billy. Definitely.
So, yeah, because I'm allowing myself to be recorded, I have some, not poetic license or artistic integrity, but I have some creative control over how I am recorded.
Well, and it's still kind of anonymous the way you do it, really. So even though
it is, but it's not. If it wouldn't be so hard to look up who owns my website, or anything.
No,
like
I know, but just in general, it's like a superhero or supervillain. You still have a mask, you still have a garb, and yeah, I mean, of course we can find anything out about anyone, but you've given us a veil. You give the audience a veil.
And that helps. I've heard other people say that when they, who might not have even been occult shows, but they have occult leanings, that when they became a public figure, like they really came hard under the assault of the evil eye, like, and it's not necessarily people doing it intentionally either. It's
the evil eye is real.
Yeah, it's just
no
you're
joke.
under that much scrutiny, and
Yeah.
people like you, people hate you, they send their hopes and dreams on you.
Yeah.
And so, like, yeah, it doesn't hurt to have a mask.
Yeah, I struggle with that always.
I would also argue that some of that is brought upon oneself by worrying about it.
Well, you can't
to a certain
give it
degree.
Energy, but it is good to enact your will to push it away, reflect it outward.
No question.
Another question?
One last question here, I'll read. It's from, guess who? Felix. Lost it. It was about fasting. Have you ever fasted, and was it good? What did you get out of it?
Okay, so, well, here's something that is not so public knowledge. I have a swallowing disorder. It's called achalasia. And I can't, it's kind of difficult to eat, especially if I'm uncomfortable. So I am kind of in a perpetual state of fasting, even though my diet is the worst, most unhealthy things for you, but that's because I need to keep my calories up. So, like, there was one time when, reading the old grimoires, and I was like, let's give it a shot. We're gonna do a week. And well, I learned that fasting isn't just no food. There is a thing called a fasting diet. And if you want to take your fasting diet to the next level, then it's just bread and water. So this one day long, many, many years ago, I was going to work, and I would always stop and get like a bag of chips and a soda at the grocery store before I went in, so that I had something to just do while I was at work, because some of the hours were downtime. And so, like, that day I was like, okay, we're gonna do it. Bought this bag of like dry rolls, and I bought this gallon of water, and I took the first bite of that bread with no butter on it, and I was like, oh, maybe if I drink some water, it'll make it better. Oh! So I pretty much gave up on that. Every once in a while, I go a day without eating, just because there's too much for me to do that day. And because of my swallowing thing, I kind of, my hunger, like, I have to eat because I know I have to eat. I don't really get hungry anymore, which is, my chiropractor would tell me that's a really bad sign. And when I went out to visit David Griffin for his Magic All event the other year, I did not eat for the whole 3 days that I was there. Because, like, number one, weird. Number two, I didn't really want to tell them about my swallowing disorder and stuff, even though I'm making it public knowledge now on this show. And also, like, it was kind of to spook them out. Like, they all just witnessed a miracle. I did not eat for 3 days, and it did not change the way I functioned. So, of course, as soon as I got out of there, I drove to, like, McDonald's, and I had 2 bacon McDoubles and a strawberry shake, because, oh, God, I needed to put sugar water back into my blood.
And those raccoons and crows are eating from your trash.
Oh, yeah. That was how I started having this thought about the raccoons eating more cooked meat.
Uh-huh.
Was right after doing a little bit of the mother bird act.
Oh my God.
All right. That's all the questions.
Okay.
And that's the show.
That's a wrap.
It's a wrap.
Cool. I ended out with grossing everybody out.
And at the highest viewer count of the night, too, I should say.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
excellent.
crap. Now everybody knows
thank
my
you.
dirty Greek secret.
Thank you, Billy, for coming on. I'm looking forward to our after show. And thank you, everyone in the chat. Sorry,
Yes.
I never go in there. So, but I love yes.
You were in there twice.
I was in there at the beginning. Yeah.
Go in there right now and say goodbye. It won't hurt your system.
I'll say goodbye when we go to post Horus.
All right.
And I'll go in and see what's going on.
All right, it was a pleasure to be here.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, audience, for watching. Next week we have Mr. Robert Powell, who wasn't here. I don't think he's here now, but will be joining us. Robert A. Powell, the Value
Robert
Tiger.
was here in the chat.
I know. I think he took off.
Oh.
It's all good. It's all good. So thank you very much, everyone. We'll talk to you next week. Same time, same channel. Bye.
Bye.